New York Times best-selling author, retired firefighter safety engineer John Gilstrap.
Good morning.
Jefferson County prosecuting attorney Matthew Harvey with no criminal jurisdiction during the course of this program.
Yes.
Very yes.
I was going to say very good, but it's yes, I do not have jurisdiction here, and that is freeing. So it means less responsibility.
Yeah, you've had some adventures over the last couple of years. It's nice to just
Not
kind of
here.
chill.
Yeah. This is
Right?
just come and set all that stuff aside for a couple hours and have good conversations with good guests.
Can ignore all that stuff in the hallway at the radio station. That just doesn't exist.
Riff-raff. Our guest in this segment is Senator Patricia Rucker. Senator Rucker, good morning. Welcome back.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Good to be home?
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, when was your last day in Charleston?
Sunday.
When will you head back?
Unfortunately, probably June.
Yeah, how long? That'll be a special session, or is that just a regular interim?
Interim.
Okay. Is there a chance it could become a special session, or did you get most of the governor's work done?
Well, so there's a chance it could become a special session, but not because we didn't get most of the governor's work done. He has already made clear that there are special sessions going to be happening this year.
Okay. You are the chair of GovOrg. What does GovOrg do? I know we've asked this question before.
Okay. It's a good question. A government organization, for those who don't know what GovOrg stands for, is really, I've discovered, can pretty much be just about any topic that the government has its hands in. And it's meant to be the committee that oversees what the government is doing and how can it do it better. But just about anything and everything could be thrown into GovOrg committee, I've discovered.
It's a catch-all.
It is a catch-all.
I think it's underestimated, the power of the GovOrg as well committee.
Would you agree with that?
I would. I was actually very pleased at the breadth and width and complexity of the issues that we had to handle in the Government Organization Committee, and I really enjoyed it. It was a challenge, though. I was dealing with topics that I had no familiarity with.
That's how you keep your mind fresh.
That is absolutely correct.
Exercise your brain. We were just talking with Senator Amy Grady. I'm not sure if you heard that segment or not, but she mentioned the two of you worked together on the possibility of creating high-risk charter schools.
Yes, we definitely did. And Amy Grady's a great education chair.
All right. How will that work, and what kind of progress are you making?
Okay, so I wasn't planning on talking about that, but
Yeah, I didn't know about it
topic.
until she mentioned it, honestly.
Yes, no. So the high-risk charter schools, we already allow in West Virginia charter schools to come, basically defining into code what a high-risk charter school is and openly encouraging it is like sending out an invitation. Please consider coming here. I discovered through my travels that there are other states that have opened up high-risk population charter schools that, and the way that we defined it is we're talking about students who are in danger of failing, students who have challenges like, drug abuse, substance abuse, some foster care youth can be high risk also. For whatever issues may be impacting that student that is causing them to fail at a regular public school, these high-risk charter schools cater to that population by having very small class sizes, individualized instruction, and very flexible scheduling. So some of these charter schools only open 2 days a week, for example, and the rest of the week, those students can go to work if that's what is needed for them, or to get rehab, or whatever it is. So they make it work. They still have to fulfill all of the requirements of an education in West Virginia, but just a lot of flexibility to help them do what they need to do. And there's one that I visited in Arizona.
What kind of age group are we talking about?
Mostly middle and high school.
Okay.
I visited one in Arizona that is a beautiful partnership between the regular public schools and the charter school, where they have I guess you'd say, a relationship where the student can flow in and out as needed. So when the student is able to be at their home public school, great. But when the student can't, for whatever reason, and again, like I said, this could be a whole range of reasons. Sometimes it's behavioral issues. Sometimes it's the family issues. But When they can't, they can flow into the charter school, continue their education there with the flexibility and individualized attention they need. And when they're ready, they can go back into the public school. And it was a beautiful
Is that a
system.
Star Academy?
That one is actually Menta, MENTA, the one that I got to visit in Arizona. But I know that Star Academy is yet another one. And there is another one called Learn for Life. And all of these are really just amazing programs for at-risk youth.
Can the charter school exist within the high school itself?
It can, and that has happened also, yes.
Yeah. So when you do a student count for state funding,
Yes.
how does that work if you're moving from a charter school back to the traditional public school?
So it depends. So the state funding is usually allocated once a year, and you do a count as of a certain date. So if within that year you move from one to the other, the school that the student has moved into can actually get the school that was receiving the money for that student to forward the money. Unless that child is in the school enrolled as of the date that the enrollment is counted, that school that the child transfers to doesn't receive the money. So then they just basically ask the school to receive the money, hey, since this student came to me, you need to forward the money to us.
Now, you can't create a charter school, correct?
I, myself, personally?
You personally could, but as a legislator, you can't create a charter school, correct?
No, I can't. I will tell you that it was really funny when we created charter schools. One of the contentious allegations that was made was that I was trying to start a charter school and that I was doing this for some self-serving reason.
I remember that.
Yeah, so we clarified that no, no legislator can create a charter school. Although we did later change that provision to make it clear that a public official could work at a charter school, and that was because there was a certain school board member who wanted to get a job at a charter school, and they were a teacher, and why were we denying them the ability to work at a charter school? So
Right.
we did change it slightly.
Are you to the point with this legislation where you can see it happening in reality in the next year or two?
So I will tell you, there is one of these organizations that is thinking about coming to West Virginia and possibly starting the first of this type of charter school, but it'll be down in Canal.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's where everything is, right?
Don't get me started on that, please.
Yeah. Mr. Gilstrap.
Several places I want to go here. How do we deal with the $400 million deficit?
How did we deal with
Yes.
it, or how do we deal with it?
Well, the session is over, so pick your verb.
So I will tell you that I think the fixing of the deficit is going to be not something we do in one session or in one budget, but what we are trying to move out of, and I think this is actually a very adequate way to handle it, is we are trying to stop using one-time money to pay for things that are recurring. So the budget that we passed was basically trying to shift some of that. So things that are one-time is okay to use one-time money for, but things that are ongoing budget items that we have to pay for year after year after year, we're trying to fund with ongoing funds.
And one-time money an example of one-time money would be what?
So a surplus that you just have because we have an
Okay.
economic upturn, or like COVID money was one-time
Gotcha.
money.
Okay. And PEIA, do we address the issues with PEIA?
Not yet. I will tell you that that's one of the special sessions the governor wants to have. He wants to do a deep dive focused PIA special session, which is probably a better way of handling it because it is very difficult during those 60 days with all the different things that we're trying to get done in 60 days to really give it the attention it needs. And to be completely fair, we started to have PEIA task force meetings that then kind of dissolved and didn't continue. But really, you really want to have people who really understand what's going on and not just a peripheral, do this because this is what we think is best at this point. No, let's really see what is causing the structural problems with PEIA. And I've mentioned at one of the forums when I was campaigning last season that we have to understand PEIA is an extremely, extremely good program for those who are benefiting from it. And fixing it is probably going to require us to not make it as generous as it is. And so therefore, the folks who are really like, we have to fix it, we have to fix it, I don't know if they understand that fixing it does not mean making it more generous. And I think that's one of the discussions that really needs to happen so that folks understand. It's not that we are trying to take things away from them, but the program really is it's not a sustainable program because of how generous it is, because of the fact that we are not taking into consideration your health risks, which almost every other health insurance does. We're letting you pay based on your salary, not based on health metrics. There's a lot of things there that if we really want to fix, we would have to change those things. And it does mean more money for certain people, and especially those who have more of health risks.
Didn't the Affordable Care Act make it illegal to take pre-existing conditions into account?
So I can tell you that I'm not the healthcare expert, but most health plans, if you smoke, for example, that's something that they take into account in terms of what your health insurance is going to look like. If you have a chronic health condition of some sort, that's taken into account. We're not doing that right now.
And then my final question before I go to Matt here is the news cycle about measles is pretty scary down in Texas. And the vaccine bill did not pass in West Virginia. Do you feel a little bit of relief, like maybe we dodged a bullet with?
No, I don't. I actually think that we're going to find out what the actual details of the measles outbreak in Texas is. But when we had a measles outbreak in 2016 in California, when they did the actual tests of the measles, they found that a lot of the measles cases could be tied to a vaccine. So the measles outbreak in California in 2016 was actually tied to a vaccine. And I don't know.
Vaccine caused the measles?
Yes. And I
Senator
don't know.
Rucker, we've asked health experts we've had on the show that question.
Yes.
Because it's been brought up before, and I know a lot of it was brought up based on testimony for the one fund that RFK was the spokesperson for, Children's Defense Fund or something.
Yes.
And I can't find a medical expert who agrees that the vaccine caused measles, and that's from the federal level on down.
Well, you can look it up yourself because there were articles and studies done on it afterwards, and again, 2 years afterwards, so after the scare. And in a lot of those cases, the people that got sick were people who had been vaccinated but weren't getting boosted, which you're not required to once you leave school. So the only time that we require it is during those 12 years. And then afterwards, certainly your health practitioner can tell you can get boosted, but they don't push it. The other thing that we don't know about the Texas case, right? We know that there's a huge issue of immigration, and we don't know how much of that impacted that outbreak. So,
well, unvaccinated people coming into the country have been primarily, from the data that I've read, responsible for many of the measles outbreaks. But for the longest time, when the rate in the country of vaccination was around 97%, it didn't have much of an effect. Those rates have been falling around the country, and now we have over 700 cases in 22 states, whereas in the year 2000, measles was eradicated in America.
And how many of those cases, again, we don't know, are coming from a vaccine or not?
Well, I've not seen any. I've not had, and we've talked to a lot of people, I've not had anybody tell me the vaccine's causing measles.
Well, like I told you, it definitely was a cause in the 2016 California case that happened. And so we don't know, and unfortunately it takes time before we actually get to the bottom of these. And one of the things I feel I look forward to, RFK has promised that these type of research and investigation is going to happen and be more transparent. And I hope that will happen.
Mr. Harvey.
House Bill 2008 passed. This was the government. I don't know the title, but it was dealing with reorganization. Can we get a little breakdown of what that touched?
Sure. Yes, the Government Reorganization Act, and actually 2008, 2009, and 2013, all related.
Those are the bill numbers, not the years.
Yes,
Okay.
that's the bill numbers. They all came from the governor, and it was he. First of all, wants to streamline things, and instead of spreading out government, actually make it more clear, top to bottom, this is who does what. It's the easiest way I can explain it. And in addition to that, in that bill, he also is going to gradually move away from a civil service to a at-will and merit-based system. And that was really a cleanup. Like, there was a lot of cleanup. So all three of those bills were really big bills, and it came through Government Organization Committee, and I'm very happy to say passed, almost unanimously.
So if someone is currently civil service, will they lose that and be switched over to at-will, or is that just for new employees coming in?
New employees, or if you change your position.
Okay.
So if you're in your position right now or civil service and you remain there, no problem. But if you move, whether it's promoted or a lateral move to another government agency that no longer will have civil service, then you will not have civil service and become at will.
And this is based on what the governor perceives as how he wants to run the executive branch.
Yes, and I think that it is his intention to just be able to reward great employees and create a system where you know that what you do is valued.
And streamlined government, was that part of this bill as well?
That was definitely part of it. And all three of those bills were basically cleaning out things, taking out things that we are no longer doing. We put a lot of things into codes, like we're going to create the commission on such and such, and it's meant to last for 2 years, and they give us a report. Well, we were cleaning out a lot of those things that no longer are in force.
And House Bill 2002 has to do with one-stop permitting.
Yes, the one-stop shop permitting.
I'm curious to hear about what that means.
So under the Division of Administration, which currently our friend Eric Householder is the secretary of, they are going to create a portal so that all the government agencies at the state level, so it didn't affect local, but the state level, whether it is the Department of Environment or whether it's the Secretary of State, Division of Labor, all of the different places that you might have to get a permit to start a business, they're going to create one portal where you could go to that portal and see everything you have to do and fill it out electronically and send in your payment, and you're good to go.
For permitting? For
permitting. One-stop shop permitting.
I'm not a businessman. I don't own business, but I'm sure that's probably a pretty onerous thing to have to.
It definitely is, especially if you have to go work through different agencies. The bill mandates these agencies work collaboratively. What a crazy idea. Instead of making the employer or the business have to find the different people in the different agencies that they need to contact, we have to create a way that makes it very easy for them to know and find it in one place.
Does that also contemplate a staff member that will be able to walk a business person through, like, you need this, or this now? So
not in the one-stop shop permitting, no, not necessarily talking about a staff member. It's just creating the portal. But you may be thinking of 2014, in which it was the microgrid data center bill, in which the Department of Economic Development will have a staff person to help walk through the process of any data center or microgrid that wants to come to the state of West Virginia. That's a different bill.
Let's stay on that bill.
Go ahead, Rob.
We did a lot of work on that yesterday with a variety of people, including members of the Jefferson County Commission. I think most of if not all, of the Eastern Panhandle delegation voted in favor of that bill. Is that correct?
I'm pretty sure. I think
100%, right? Yeah. There was some confusion as to the county share of the money that's going to be coming from the real estate taxes. Okay. So the county will get 30% of the real estate taxes, plus you'll get a per capita share of 10% that's divided around the state, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And it's based on population.
Yes. So where do the schools fit into that property tax equation, Patricia, because that's the confusing part.
So the schools get their full allotment of the property tax from that data center or microgrid. So that 55% and that metric that we had for dividing up the taxes does not affect like the school levy funds and doesn't affect the what you would call the base funds that goes to schools directly in the county.
So if that data center is going to, just take an easy number to divide, is $1 million worth of taxes, and I know it's much more than that. So the counties are going to get 30% of that 1 million, correct?
Yes.
So $300,000.
Yes.
And then 10% goes around the state, divided by each person in the county. And then you have 10% that's earmarked for something else. It goes for
Different
power
things.
stabilization and whatever, which leaves the other 50% of the money that goes to the state.
For the personal income tax reduction.
Correct, over the course of time. Those personal income tax reductions, how often will they be calculated from the money that's annually collected in property taxes?
So there's a trigger language in place, and for every, and please don't ask me what the number is, but
No,
for,
it's Eric Householder's territory.
yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
For every amount that they reach, let's say 2.4 million, something like that,
Yes.
it triggers a 2% drop in the personal income tax. That's more or less what I remember of the trigger language. But so that fund already created, Eric Householder was, in the legislature. Anyways, so for every so much money in that fund, 2% is reduced of the personal income. And as we put more money in, another 2% goes down.
So-
and annually, so every single year that money gets calculated. How much do we have? How much can we lower the personal income tax for the next year?
So annually it's calculated,
Yes.
but it won't kick in as a reduction until it reaches a certain level.
Exactly.
Okay, now do the surplus funds, for instance, Jason Barrett, the Senate Finance Chair, yesterday on the show, said that I think we are projected to be around 200 million surplus by the end of the year, the end of the state's fiscal year. Does that money also get lumped into that amount where we figure out what the trigger is for an income tax reduction?
So again, the legislature in its budget gets to determine what do we do with those surplus funds. We can use it for one-time spends, which I already explained earlier, or we can put it into that fund to more rapidly decrease the personal income tax.
I assume we're not going to reach a trigger this year for a PIT reduction.
I don't think this
correct?
year, no.
Right. When do you anticipate data center funds, tax funds, starting to flow into the state?
So everyone was saying it'll probably be 2 or 3 years before we see the first one completed and operating. So we're talking 3-4 years down the road.
At this time, what counties are you aware of, if any, other than, we know Berkeley has one that's underway, and I believe Mason, we've been told, has one that's
Yes.
going. Tucker, I think, is another that I've heard. What other ones around the state are you aware of?
I haven't heard of any other, although there was discussion Logan County may get one, but again, nothing definite. And I also know that there's a lot of interest along the Ohio River. So the Ohio River seems to be where they're mostly attracted to, just because of the water supply.
And I think there's probably more interest than we could ever know, because the local economic authorities would sign non-disclosures.
Yeah, you can't tell anybody anything until
So
it's
there's probably
released.
more eyes on there than we realize.
I've got a minute left. It's yours. What do you want to do?
Oh my goodness gracious, just a minute. I do want to say that it was a very good session, I think. We had 87 bills that ran through government organization, and on top of that, I had over 30 bills that made it through the legislative process, and I'm very grateful now to be home and get some recovery time.
Well, very good. Thank you very much for coming by today. We appreciate it. We know you're very busy during the session. We didn't get a chance to speak with you, but it's nice to have you back on the show.
Thank you very much.